What's good? It's your boy Fannon. All right, your boy Barry Hearn fesses up about the S.Lave contracts that got over there at Matchroom, talking about Dillian White in amazement that they would ever sign a fight-by-fight deal, and how he has to call Dillian White sir. Now, this is not just Matchroom boxing, okay? But this is one of the major reasons why I personally support people's fighters with the PBC, and I think that it is so good for boxers. And as a result of being good for boxers, I think it's really good for boxing. And I'll go over it. Now, I'm also going to juxtapose this with what Deontay Wilder said about the Dazn offer that he had received, the $120 million multi-fight offer with Dazn, the one that he turned down. Now, before I do that though, I want to welcome you back to the channel, subscribers. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and you'll be notified of when we do our live streams and also our OG Boxing Talks Sunday mornings, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Now, Deontay Wilder turned down a deal with Dazn because he said that he didn't want to be locked down into a multi-fight deal. He wanted to bet on himself, and he felt that Dazn was not sharing all the information that they had with him, and that boxing is a sneaky business, and that's why you got to keep your lawn cut, because there's a lot of snake in the grass. This is obviously true. It's been true for a very long time, and Barry Hunter admitting this that openly, I think is now. If he could take those words, if I'm Eddie Hearn, I'm like, Dad, will you be quiet? Come on, man, you're not supposed to do that, man. Don't you understand what you just did? So just to be fair to the Hearns, I don't believe that they're any different than most promoters or most people that would sign you into a contract that is in their best interest and not in your best interest. Now, let me be specific about what I mean about this. I don't think that and I'm going to try my absolute best to take away any type of unnecessary characterizations and keep it to as technical a discussion as I can, with at the same time allowing people to understand what I'm saying. The contracts, I've read several contracts for boxers, standard promotional agreements, executed promotional agreements, revised promotional agreements. Also, I've read the advisory, the template for the advisory deal for Al Heyman in the PBC. So I'm pretty fairly familiar now with the standard terms and conditions in these promotional contracts. I've also have a lot of expertise in writing independent contractor agreements when we hire independent contractors, and when I'm myself working as an independent contractor. And the way that I read the promotional contracts is that it is a dependent contractor, and we're a deal with that, say, Deontay Wilder's on with Showtime, or Deontay Wilder's on with any particular promoter, is an independent contractor. Now, I'm not going to say, a S.Lave, when you say a S.Lave contract, you bring in the idea that somebody is not getting paid any money, that there is no compensation when you talk about slavery, right? But a dependent contractor, there is compensation, similar to there being what people would call wage slavery. But I'd like to call it a dependent contractor, because you are bound by, you have to work with the promoter. The promoter gets to promote your fights. The promoter owns all of the rights to your name, the fights that you fight in. So if there's any rights associated with that fight that goes on afterwards, in most cases that promoter keeps that, not the fighter themselves. What the fighter gets themselves is a purse for a fight. And there are things in the contract, obviously I don't have time in this video to go through everything in it, but there's some things that I saw, like the minimums that they offer fighters, right? So it's standard to offer a fighter in a promotional agreement a minimum amount of money that you're going to get for a 4-round fight, a minimum amount of money that you're going to get for an 8-rounder, for a 10-rounder, for a 12-rounder, right? And there should be, but not always is, a requirement that the fighter gets a certain number of fights a year. The problem with this is that when you have a minimum, in the way that these standard agreements are written, that once you become a big earner and your fights start really paying off and making money, then your minimum actually becomes a liability to you, because the promoter, like Barry Hearn, doesn't gotta call you sir. They tell you to take the fights that they want to take. And if you don't take them, they can stick you on the shelf and pay you the minimum, right? They can pay you the minimum, and that means if your minimum is $10,000 for a major fight, then they can just pay you the $10,000 and freeze you out. But they also have contract clauses in some of these contracts which allow the promoter to terminate the contract if a fighter loses. But if the fighter wins a championship, it extends their contract by 2 years. So it's just if you don't know how to negotiate a contract, and you don't have a manager in there or an advisor in there separate from the manager, separate from the promoter, that has the ability to say, or has the ability to negotiate those terms for you, you can easily get stuck. But here's the problem. When you have multi-fight deals and they decide they're not going to keep their promise, you can't get out of them. So you're dependent for a period of time. It could be a 3-year deal, and then if you win a championship, it goes another 2 years. So you're pretty much dependent upon that promoter for 5 years. Dependent upon a promoter for 5 years. An independent contractor, on the other hand, can decide that they are going to fight for this fight and this fight only. Yes, I will sign with you. How much am I getting for this fight? And then minimums don't come into play, because you're not fine. And if you win a championship, it doesn't come into play. It doesn't extend your deal. And you have the ability to negotiate on a fight by fight basis. So when I'm looking at, say, the Deontay Wilder contract, or the way that I understand Deontay Wilder's thing to be a fight by fight, and I compare it to, say, David Benavidez's contract, which I read because it was in a lawsuit, David Benavidez has the ability, his promoter, if your promoter or any promoter has the ability to terminate your contract because you lose, with them, you are functionally on a fight by fight basis with them. They have a fight by fight contract with you, but you don't have a 5-year a fight by fight contract with them, right? That's a scenario that David Benavidez, you can read it in the court case that he filed to try to get out of his promotional deal. He's on a multi-year deal with minimums, but the promoter, if he loses, can get out of he can terminate the contract because he lost, which means again that promoter has a fight by fight deal with David Benavidez, but David Benavidez has a multi-year with him. It's a dependent contractor. So that's getting to the point about the Al Heyman and why that stuff is good and why people can't stand Al Heyman so much. Al Heyman actually, from what I can see on the outside as an advisor, Al Heyman has the ability, an advisor who has a lot of different fighters that he advises and has a lot of relationships with promoters, has a lot of relationships with networks, has a platform that people can get their fights on. If on a fighter for a fight by fight basis has the ability to be, and the advisor, somebody like Al Heyman, knows what their fight schedule are, he can help them arrange fights between themselves and other independent contractors. So for example, Errol Spence Jr. versus Mikey Garcia was one independent contractor fighting against another independent contractor. They can take that fight if they want to take that fight, provided that there's not something in the agreement with Al Heyman that where he says, no, I don't think that that's a good decision. I don't want that to happen. That's very possible, right? Because, hey man, people are going to lock up. No, this is not, how can I say it? Al Heyman has his own interest in it as well. And to think that he's just, completely benevolent and completely, void of any self-interest is obviously, man, not realistic because it's the business world. But anyway, man, I just thought that was funny because Barry Hearn calls it, admits that he has a slave contract and is amazed that they're signing a fight-by-fight deal with Dillian Whyte, which is the exact model that Al Heyman and the PBC fighters are using that people cannot stand. So anyway, it is what it is. And I thought that was hilarious. And with that, I'm out. Peace.